Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Material Matters with me, Grant Gibson. As regular listeners will know, the idea behind the show is that I speak to a designer, maker, artist or architect about a material with which they're intrinsically linked and discover how it changed their lives and careers. Today I'm in the studio of a ceramicist like no other, Malene Hartmann Rasmussen. The Danish-born but London-living artist creates figurative work that fuses her interest in traditional folklore, fairy tales and film. And while her installations often look brightly poppy on the surface, they usually contain something darker and rather more sinister underneath. And as I think we'll discover, the driving influence behind her pieces is often intensely personal. Hartmann Rasmussen was part of the Gerald Makers Open in 2015 and was nominated for the Période Art Salon Prize in 2014. Later this month, she will take a starring role in a major show at Messham's Wiltshire entitled Beyond the Vessel, Narratives in Contemporary European Ceramics, which runs until the 12th of April. Malene, thank you very much for doing this.
You're very welcome.
Should we kick off by talking a bit about the space we're in, the studio? It's quite something. You appear to be missing, well, a roof.
Yeah, yeah, I am. Not to my studio, but to the whole building, because the building's been on fire. But it was before it was made into studios.
For the listeners, can you try and paint a picture of where it is that you work?
Yeah, it's next to Seven Sisters Station, and it's in an old industrial neighborhood. So there's a lot of like small industry. There's a lot of people fixing up cars and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's quite like urban.
And why Tottenham? Why did you end up here?
It was because we were looking for a space, my partner and I, and a space where he's a photographer, and a place where he could shoot also, that we could like a live workspace.
Right.
So we could both live there, and then he could use it as a studio, and then to be close to his children.
I mean, should we talk about the show in Messham's?
Yeah.
Beyond the Vessel. What's the thinking behind the exhibition?
Yeah, it was a show that was it was shown in Istanbul
Right.
first, so it just ended here on the 22nd of December, and I worked on installation for 7 months, so most of last year I worked on it, and I wasn't really sure I knew what it was about in the beginning, but I knew I wanted to make something with the monsters, with the beast, and then slowly it developed into to be an installation that was like a place of worship, and central for the installation is a totem pole.
And what's on the totem pole?
It's kind of like a kind of stacked being. So the base is it's a dog-like creature, but it looks a bit like a teddy bear dog, like a toy dog. And then on top of that, there's a head, a golden head, which is, I guess, a bit Dracula-like with pointy teeth. And then there's a hairy creature on top of that, and then a golden egg on the very top.
Because it's called, I mean, the whole installation, that's the kind of center point, and you have some other creatures and heads.
Yeah, there's a lot of different
it.
monsters there, in also from private collection also. So, yeah.
And it's called Phantasma brackets Ghost.
Yeah.
What's in the name?
The name was actually it was a title that I had in my mind for a long time, because we went to Barcelona, and then there was we met some Spanish people there, and we were talking about different words, and then she was mentioning this word phantasma, that means ghost in Spanish, and then I just really liked the word, so I thought I'm going to use it for a piece. And then the whole installation ended up being about like the ghosts of my life, about my family, and all the people that I lost.
Because I mean, as I kind of alluded to in the intro, a lot of your work looks kind of bright and has a kind of cartoon-like quality to it.
Yeah.
And you've been inspired by folklore, by trolls, but there's also this really personal streak running through it. I mean, this piece was inspired by your family, I'm right in saying?
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about your background and your
yeah,
family and where this kind of darker side comes from?
Yeah. I had bit of a difficult childhood. So I grew up in Denmark in a small town, and my father, he was an alcoholic, so he drank quite a lot in like periods of his life, and it also eventually it killed him when I was 10 years old. He died.
Just he was a typesetter by trade.
Yeah, he was a typesetter. Yeah, and they did drink a lot, and there was a lot of his colleagues that died. Also around
just
the
culturally,
time.
that's part of the job.
Yeah, it's part of the culture. Yeah, they work at night, and it's they were all like communist and working class, and it was just part of the whole kind of culture, socialist, communist culture. Also, that you drank a lot of beer. So, but of course, he probably just drank a bit more than the other guys, so it ended up killing him. So I grew up with my mother, and my mother was she was quite fragile. She was bipolar, but she was only sick one time before my father died. She was sick a couple of years before he died, and then she was on medication for a long time, and then she got sick again, just around the time I moved out of my mother's place, or where I grew up. And then after that, she was just in and out of hospitals the rest of her life, basically. So
it's quite tough.
Yeah, it was quite. Yeah, I was like looking after her. So, yeah.
And are there pieces that you can point to? That there's a double-headed piece.
Yeah, that's very much about my mother. Also, with she was a very sweet person, and when she was at the hospital, they always loved her. When I came to visit her, they were always, she's so sweet, and she was very sweet. But when she was manic, she was a demon also. She could be really, really mean and just do completely crazy stuff. So many times I had to kind of just get her out of it. And like, she spent all her money, for instance, in the weekend, just going partying with one of her crazy friends. And then I had access to her accounts because I was like looking after her.
So how old were you at this point?
I was probably like mid-20s. Yeah, mid-20s, like 27, 26, 27. Yeah, so that was quite tough. It's like many times, and she fell, and then she got in hospital because she hurt her head. And yeah, there was a lot of stuff. When you're mentally ill, then you just get in trouble all of the time. So you get used to it. That's the thing with children. They accept a lot of stuff.
Right.
So it's like, you accept it. I love my mother, and she was very, she sacrificed herself for the family, for keeping everything together. And
she was a teacher, was she?
Yeah, no, she was a kindergarten teacher, we call it in Denmark. She was working in a nursery. I guess nursery, what's it called in English?
Yeah, primary school, nursery, yeah.
Yeah, not in school, but in a nursery.
Oh, in nursery.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And she was very creative also. We did a lot of creative stuff.
Well, I was going to ask, were you making at home?
Yeah. And we had lots of materials because also they always at the end of the year in the nursery, they always had to spend a lot of money. The rest they had in the account, and then all the nursery teachers, they just got lots of like beads and paper and stuff home. So we had tons of stuff like that. So yeah, there were lots of.
And what kind of things were you making?
I was making clay stuff also. I was making like small clay figures. I was making the Moomin. I remember whole Moomin family with furniture and stuff. And I was making a lot of things out of paper, making like boxes and figures and all kinds of. Then I was crocheting a lot. So I was crocheting a lot of toy animals because I loved the toy animals, like soft toys. So I did that, and clothes for them also. A lot of clothes I made for them.
And this interest in fairy tales, was that something that developed in childhood? Did that come later?
No, that's from my childhood, yeah. It's the way I have all this with the trolls, which are a big thing in Scandinavia.
And it's quite intriguing that you grew up in this quite rural environment. I mean, the town you're in was north of Copenhagen, I believe, is quite small.
Yeah, it was you would call it a small town. I guess it was a village, and then like in the late 60s, then they built a lot of houses, like these kind of we call them type houses, where all the houses are. Like, from Edward Scissorhand, from the beginning of it, where you see all these like houses that look the same. Then they built a lot of houses, and that's the house I grew up in, one of those houses.
Very different from the environment you're living in now.
Yeah, there was so the house I grew up in was in this like neighborhood, a quite safe neighborhood. So we were basically running around on our own all day. Then you had a key, or you came home for dinner. So, and it was built just where there was an orchard. So there was an old orchard with an old farm also that was just down next to the neighborhood, basically. And then there were fields around, and there were forests also that you could walk across the field, and then you were in the forest with like stone. There were stone settings there also, like what they call dolmen, how they call that, with the 3 stones and a stone.
Oh, okay.
And so I ran over there a lot, and we went on a bicycle. There were cows also, I remember, when I walked to school. Sometimes they jump over the fence, and then they were running around on the bicycle path. So. But it's very different now there. So.
But your first love wasn't clay; it was film, I believe.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So how did you get into film? You were a projectionist in the local cinema.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But I always loved films. There were like in the small town where I grew up, there was cinema. So and they had in the summer. I remember they had these. I don't know what you call it, like cavalcade, but they showed like a film for 2 days and then another film. So they showed a lot of like old films. So I remember I saw like Psycho there and old films like that. So I went there a lot. I just went there alone to see the films because I liked some different films from my friends. So I did that.
So what were your friends watching? You were watching Psycho. What were they watching?
Psycho. I don't know what they were watching, to be honest. I don't know. I was a bit different. I liked all this like goth rock and stuff like that. So I listened to Bauhaus and Joy Division, and like my friends, they listened to something else. I don't even know actually. I don't even know what they listened to.
I mean, did you feel different?
I did feel very different. Yeah, I had friends. It's not like I didn't have any friends, but I don't really think I had anybody to share my interest with before I started in like high school. Then I met some people that liked similar music and similar films and stuff. Yeah.
How did you go from film into ceramics, cinema into ceramics?
Yeah, I worked many years as a projectionist. First in art house cinema, and then I was managing a cinema, also a commercial cinema. And then I just.
Where was that? Was it still in your hometown?
No, it wasn't. No, it was. I moved to like when I turned 19, I think. Then I moved to this bigger town that's called Hillerød, which is the biggest town next to where I grew up. And there was an art house cinema, and I was working there also. And it was kind of a house of culture, so there were concerts and a lot of death metal concerts and stuff like that. And it was a cool place. And I spent quite a few years there, and I got a lot of friends there that I still have, actually, really good friends. And then from there I moved to Copenhagen, and then and that coincided when getting a new job there and managing the cinema, and that was like outside Copenhagen, so it was like west of Copenhagen. But it was.
Did you get to choose what films you showed if you're managing the cinema?
Yeah, but the thing is, it was a cinema like in a part of west of Copenhagen, and it was in a mall, so it was quite like commercial. There was a lot of kids coming there, and it wasn't like the most interesting audience, I must admit. I tried to show some art house films, but it was 2 people showing up every time, the same 2 people. So it was, I did try, and I did run really tired of the job, and so.
So you're running the cinema.
Yeah.
But then you discover.
Ceramic. Then I start doing ceramics together with a friend, my best friend Mette, and we started. It was probably like late 90s or something. We started doing ceramics in evening classes, and like Raku first, and then we started coming at a school where we could make ceramics. There was an old guy that ran kind of a little group there. And
did you take to it straight away? Were you immediately thinking, this is my medium, I've arrived?
No, because all the first things I made, they all exploded, I remember. All of them. So I don't really have any. I made beautiful like sculptures of people and animals, and they all exploded.
So your first works were figurative?
Yeah, it was figurative. All of it was, yeah. Yeah, it was animals, and it was, I made these dolls, and yeah, it was figurative, all of it, yeah. Like hand-modeled, so, yeah.
And when did you decide to give the cinema up and take up ceramics as a kind of living?
Yeah, I did that when I had my 30-year crisis.
So your 30th birthday, and you decided this is it?
Yeah. Then I've been doing ceramics for a while, and I was also making work that I already then actually that I sold at markets.
Right.
Like I changed. I started doing what's it called? The functional stuff. Slip cast vessels with screen printed decoration, and I was already selling it, and then I just quit I got tired of my job and I quit it, and then I just did ceramics full time after that. So I started going in the studio every day instead of going to the cinema, basically.
So you had your own studio by this time?
No, I didn't actually. It was a studio. It was in Copenhagen. They have these different studios in the different areas. They still have that. It's supported by the municipality, I guess. It's supported by stately money. So you just had to, you bought like a membership. It was like £10 a year, I think. And then you paid per kilo of clay with firings and glazes. And there were lots. I used the screen printing studio also. There were lots of different, and sewing studios. It was very good. So I was working there for many years actually, and selling my work also, even though it wasn't really allowed. But most of the people did that actually.
Did it sell well?
Yeah, it did. It did sell well. Yeah, it did.
What was it about clay? Why that medium? Why so intrigued by it?
Yeah, that's a bit of a mystery, actually. What was it about it? It's what I find fascinating about it is that it stays the same, or that it's such a hard material that you can make something in clay and then you can fire it, and then it turns into a different material. I think maybe that was it actually. Yeah, material that can stay the same for thousands of years. It's a tricky question.
I'm sorry, it is the point of the podcast, unfortunately.
It's a tricky material, and I'm struggling with it still.
Well, that's interesting. Why is it a tricky material for you?
Because it's everything can go wrong with it. It can, even though you've been really precarious, then it can still crack, and it can do strange things after it comes out of the kiln too, or you can completely wreck it with putting a wrong glaze on. But when it goes right, then it can turn into something really beautiful, and something maybe you couldn't see before, because there's this thing about putting it in the kiln, and then there's a transformation, and then it comes out again, and then voila, then you have something finished. So it's different than working in a wood or stone or something. And I guess there's no like turning back once it's in the kiln and then it comes out, then you can't do anything more with it. Then it's finished. So yeah, maybe I like that too.
When did you realize that you needed to go to art school? It sounds like you had this reasonably successful little business going on, but there was obviously you decided to take a shift.
Yeah, because I got bored of it also. I'm a person, I get very easily bored. So after doing it, I guess maybe just a couple of years, I guess. Then I thought, okay, now I've been doing all this slipcast work, and I want to learn more about the different techniques ceramic have, and also about glazes and throwing. And so then I joined a foundation year. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was part of the technical school. It was a foundation year you took as if you wanted to be a potter. Then you had to have an apprenticeship afterwards, like 4 years or something.
Right.
But I just took the foundation year. And it was basically set up as a you work with projects, so it was almost like similar to what you would do in a BA. So it was quite good preparation to apply for BA, and that's what I did while I was doing the foundation year there.
Because you went to Bonholm.
Yeah.
Which, I
yeah.
mean, there are many listeners who won't know
No.
where or what Bornholm
No.
is. Can you tell us a little bit about it? It's this tiny island, right?
Yeah. It's not that small. It's like just below 40,000 people living there, and it's an Danish island, but it's in the Baltic Sea. So it's quite far away from the rest of Denmark. It's a rocky island, so it's rock. Half of the coast is rock, and the other half is beautiful sand beaches. And it's very beautiful island, big forest, and it's an amazing place. I moved there. I got accepted in a course there, a 3-year course, and then I moved to this small fishing village there. In the summer, there's tons of tourists because they call it Sunshine Island. It's supposedly the place in Denmark where there's the most sun hours. So there's a lot of tourists that come there. Polish also now, and a lot of German tourists. A lot. Busloads of German. A lot of pensioners also. And a lot of Danish people have summer houses there. It's amazing in the summer. It's beautiful. And it's quite rough in the winter.
And the course itself was quite design focused, I guess you'd say. They were looking at makers for industry in those days, I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, it was quite design based. Now I think it's a bit more free now, and also somehow it was quite free because it was you could push the projects. You could make sculpture work there if you just pushed it a bit. You always have to push things a bit, otherwise you never get to do what you really want to. But it was like focused on design basically.
So you got there and you're making slip cast vessels.
Yeah.
When did you start making work that wasn't practical?
Yeah, it was like gradual. It became very impractical, some of the work I did. And I also got quite criticized for it in exams, I remember. I made very impractical series of jugs for the first year exam, I remember, and you basically couldn't use them. They were really pretty though, and they were gas fired, and they were like beautiful, like celadon, like laces on, but they were just super impractical. So
were you rebelling against the system?
The functional work was trying to change form into something more sculptural. Yeah, and then I thought in the second year, because we had a work placement there. That I wanted to apply for work placement with a figurative artist because I wanted to get started on this figurative stuff. So,
which was Caroline Schmidt.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And how important was she to your career?
She was very important actually. I saw her work. It was just when I moved to Bornholm, and I saw her work in the biennial in Bornholm. There's a ceramic biennial there, ceramic context it's called. And I saw her work there, and I was completely drawn to it. So I emailed her, and then she luckily accepted. So. And then I spent a month there, I think, or something like that, maybe a bit more there.
But it had quite a transformative effect, right?
Yeah, it did, yeah. Because I made my first sculpture there, so I made a robot there. So,
which, I mean, the robots became, well, you made quite a few of these. I mean, it's kind of the first time you came to kind of wider attention, I'd suggest, when you did a series called My Fucked Up Family.
Yeah.
Which included this kind of robot with a huge flaccid penis kind of screaming in rage at the sky.
Yeah.
I mean, angry, that's your father, I presume?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, my fucked up father. Yeah. Yeah. So I made them. I made this series. It was just after I had the work placement there. So I had a residency at Gulagård, which is a ceramic center in Denmark, and that's where I made My Fucked Up Family. So.
And what did I mean, obviously your father had passed away very sadly, but what did the other members of your family make of this work?
My mother had also passed away, so because she passed away, it was just when I started on the second year actually. So that was before I went to the work placement too. So only my sister left, and I actually haven't shown the work to my sister.
Your sister's never seen it?
No, I don't know. She might have seen on my website. She's not very websitey, so she's not very online.
Right.
She doesn't have a Facebook profile and such, so she might not have seen it. So I don't know I made her also. I made a sculpture of her.
Right.
Yeah.
So was it cathartic making these pieces?
Yeah, it was something I needed to get out, I think. And I still have them also. I don't think I can sell them. So I made my mother and standing on the big pill, because he had a lot of pills. And then my father with his stamp collection all glued onto his legs and beer caps as like adornment. And then my sister, I made. It was something I needed to get out of my system, I think, and I don't think I would want to sell them.
Right. It must have come as quite a surprise to your tutors. You know, you're making vessels, however impractical they might have been or unfunctional, and then you go away and you come back and you create this work that is, well, figurative, obviously, but also dark and kind of angry in places. What did they make of it?
Maybe they just thought it was a phase or something. I don't know. I had a very difficult time just because my mother just died when I started on the second year, and it was very tough on me. Also, my boyfriend that I'd been together with for 11 years, he broke up with me, and that was like half a year before my mother died. So I felt completely abandoned. Actually, I felt very lonely. So it was a very difficult time. So I think they were just happy that I actually. Like that I kind of could get on with my life, or like get it out of my system somehow. So
did you get it all out of your system?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, so as well as you do.
Yeah,
it's still in there somehow, but I guess I learned how to to live with it. So, but when somebody dies, they never disappear completely. You know, they just it turns smaller. But it's still there. So
when you finished at Bornholm, were you always going to come to London? Was that part of a plan?
Yeah. It was. It was actually a plan. Yeah, it was. I was living in this tiny. It was like a little fishing village, and I was doing this figurative ceramics, and I only felt that I only just started on it because I only been working with figurative. Like sculptural ceramics seriously for like 1.5 years when I graduated. So I thought I need to go somewhere else because I'm never gonna make it else. I'm never gonna be able to live of what I do if I stay in Denmark, and especially not if I stay in Bornholm in a little fishing village. So while I was doing the exam project in Bornholm, then I applied for the Royal College of Art, and then I got accepted. So I was very happy. So I started just straight after, basically moved from the fishing village and then to London.
Which is quite a leap.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Did you miss Denmark?
Yeah, I did go back to Denmark actually also, like in the holidays and stuff. So, but it was very tough. I remember the first half year especially. I think London was tough, and I didn't know anybody here, and. The whole system, the school system, the whole university system is completely different from Denmark. In Denmark, you could just talk with your tutors. You had like a crap day or something, you know. You could just go to their office and just talk to them, or just sit and chit chat, or you know, even the head of the school, you could just go in his office, you know, and it wasn't like that at RCA. It was all the tutors and professors. There was a hierarchy which I wasn't used to at all. So I felt that was quite tough, actually. It was a bit cold, I feel. But it was just until you kind of got used to it, then, yeah.
Because I remember seeing your work when you graduated in, 2011, I think it must have been.
Yeah, it was.
And it was this kind of fireplace with hearts instead of logs. There was a burning wood-burning stove with hearts instead of logs. There was a kind of squirrel in one corner that was about to get, well, presumably attacked, eaten by these two snakes. There was these kind of quite phallic lumps of wood coming out of the timber walls. And it was this bizarre. I've said to you in the past that I kind of spent quite a long time looking at it, trying to work out if it was brilliant or terrible, like a set for a provincial panto or something. The piece itself was called "While If I Had a Heart, I Could Love You."
Yeah.
What was that? What was it about?
Yeah, it was the title I stole actually from a Fever Ray song, because I'd been listening to it while I was making the work, and then I thought it's really fitting. But it was about the breakup with my ex-boyfriend.
Right.
Yeah. So that was what it was about. And the idea, it started with the fire, with the burning hearts, with the burning log hearts. And it was an idea I had from my BA project, where I made in my BA project, I made this kind of like a spaghetti western film as a sculpture. So I made this little lonely figure that was traveling through like a desert with big cactus and out on new adventures. It was like me going to London. But it was supposed to be one out of several scenes. But then, of course, I ran out of time. And one of the scenes were going to be this kind of like a cowboy fire with burning hearts. And then I remember I was talking to my old professor in Bornholm about it, and he just thought it was so pathetic. And then I thought, okay, I can't make it then. And then I didn't make it. And then when I graduated from when I was working on the project at the RCA, then I thought, okay, now I'm going to be Master of Arts. I'm going to make that pathetic bonfire, and I'm going to make it really big. So that's how it started. And then it developed into this, everything built around the fire. But it started with the fire, yeah.
Because it's very obviously inspired by fairy tales. It had a lot of... I mean, that's North German, Brothers Grimm, obviously, but it felt very inspired by fairy tales. And very different from anything else that was there for the rest of your year group.
Yeah.
What did everybody around you make of what you were doing?
I'm not sure they understood it, really. I'm not sure they understood it. I had Annie Catherall as a personal tutor, and I think she was really good for me, actually. I think she understood it, and yeah. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure everybody understood what I was. I'm not even sure I understood it myself, actually. But yeah.
Which is quite brave. I mean, there is a tide that you're very deliberately swimming against. I mean, does that bother you?
No, not really. No. And I actually think I think I understand less and less, actually, with the newer work. Also, it's like it's getting more and more hidden, even to myself. Actually, the meaning of it. Yeah.
Because you'd moved also in that period at the Royal College. You know, if you arrived making the kind of robots that you were making that were quite dark. By the time you left the Royal College, the aesthetic had got brighter, kind of poppier, if you like.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
And why was that?
Maybe it was because I was like flourishing, or I don't know. I guess I was somehow. I was like past the really tough times. And also I think it was good to move to another place. Like change of scenery is always good. So yeah, I guess I was getting out on the other side of it somehow, but yeah, I'm not sure actually. Maybe it's the city, or I don't know.
Yeah. You had a piece called Fire Walk with Me around that time, which is obviously Twin Peaks reference. David Lynch. Yeah. Lynch was important to you at this point?
Yeah, but he's been one of my favorite directors, yeah. I love Twin Peaks, and yeah.
What is it that you like about his work?
I like that it's quite like direct, or it's like he used a lot of like symbols in his films. Like I remember that Wild at Heart, where there's the fire, and it's almost like the Sergio Leone Western films, where it's these like strong. There's a clock ticking, and I like that. I like simple things, so like when there's strong symbols, yeah.
And this kind of relationship between the personal and the mythical has been a thread running through your work ever since, really. In 2013, for instance, you did, I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, Skifting?
Yeah, Skifting,
yeah. Which is changeling in English.
It basically means changeling.
Yeah. So there was a baby troll, ceramic baby troll in a crib that secretly been left in the place of a human child. But that signified an important moment in your personal life as well, right?
Yeah, and
so what was going on there?
Yeah, it was inspired also by this book I had when I was a child that was called In the Trollwoods, which I've been working with a lot. It was a book I got from my grandmother, which is with beautiful drawings by John Bauer, this Swedish artist. That he lived around 1900, and I love that book. And there's a lot of stories about changeling and trolls and all these Scandinavian stories. So initially that I just wanted to make a bedroom for a changeling. And what I hadn't really been thinking about at the time, it was just when I met my partner, Sylvain, that has 2 kids from a previous marriage. And it just didn't come to my mind at all that it was actually about that. It was about, like I turned 40 at that time, and it was about not having any children of my own and being a stepmother for his children and coping with that. And yeah. And I didn't really realize when I was making the installation, I thought, it's just a bedroom for a changeling. And yeah.
So it's subconsciously,
Yeah,
you're taking
it
things
was.
from your personal life.
Yeah, it was. And I remember me and Sylvain, there was this crib in the installation, a really beautiful, like old 1950s crib for a baby. And I spent so much time looking on eBay for baby cribs, and I was so afraid that he would think that I was like, what's it called? Skruk, it's called in Danish, that I wanted a baby.
Getting broody.
Yeah. So, and I remember we drove together and picked it up in the countryside, and the first thing I said to the guy there was like, it's for an art installation. It's like, I didn't want him to think it's because we're going to have a baby or something. I was so scared of that. But yeah, that's what the installation was about, basically. But sometimes I only realize, maybe I'm a bit stupid, I don't know. I realize afterwards.
But you pick things up from around your life as well. Django, your dog, appears quite regularly in your work.
Yeah, he features a lot in my work, yeah. He's always there with me, so I can't help it. It's I have this quite vivid inner life, and then I also read a lot, and then I have this dog always sitting, looking up at me when I look down, and so I just can't help. He just sneaks into the work all the time.
So when you talk about a vivid inner life, is that's daydreaming?
Yeah, it is daydreaming. Yeah, I've been doing that a lot since I was a child. And I did drawing a lot when I was a child.
I was going to say, do you draw now?
Yeah, but I try and force myself to do it again, but I haven't been doing it for many years, because I started doing ceramics and then I kind of stopped.
So you don't, that's quite interesting. You don't draw the heads or say this totem pole that you've created for the Beyond the Vessel show, you wouldn't have drawn that first. How does your process start?
No, I made a model.
Right.
Yeah. So I actually made several like kind of small heads, and then I found out which ones were good. So yeah, it's a bit like trial and error, but yeah. So I sit and I make small models, basically, kind of rough ones.
Has your relationship with clay changed over the years? Technically, you're very adroit with it. That's taken years to master, presumably. So has the way you've worked with clay changed?
Yeah. Maybe after I learned more techniques, then I guess I kind of experimented more also. So I guess I didn't really do that much in the beginning. Then I was just like, I was modeling figures and stuff, but I didn't really use that many different techniques like decoration and also I use quite a lot of alternative tools also.
Ooh, what do you use? That sounds intriguing.
Alternative tools. Secret tools.
Secret tools.
Yeah, that are meant for other things. Sometimes not really clay things.
Are you can you reveal what some of those might be?
No, I like to have secrets, I think. So I like to keep them actually. But I think I do more and more like experimentation, and I'm more and more playful. And also I play around with the clay a lot and see what comes out of it. And I become more analyzing of what I do. So I can sit and do small experiments with modeling or whatever, and then I analyze what I do, and then I try and alter a little movement or something, and then see what happens. And that's definitely something I developed over the years.
Is there a danger, do you think, that people misinterpret what you do or don't look beyond the surface? Does that bother you? Don't know the personal stories that are kind of lodged deeply in there?
No, I don't think it's necessary to know them. I think actually, I think it can it can prevent people to really experience the work. Sometimes if I tell them what it's about for me, because then you cut away some of the other things that it could be about for them. I don't think you need to know anything about the work really. I know people really want to know what it's about, but I think sometimes it's not good to know what it's about.
Do people tell you what they think it's about?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, a lot.
And are there things, elements that surprise you, I wonder, when they talk about the feelings that it drags out in them?
No, because often it's something to do with childhood. I feel that it's often something to do with childhood, or like some film they've seen, or some stories, or yeah. It's often, and for me, it's also a lot of it comes from my childhood. So yeah. So I think it's very natural.
So our time is nearly up.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have this major show at Messums that we've talked about.
Yeah.
But what else are you doing? Do you have plans for the future?
Yeah, I have a big show in Denmark at the Clay Museum, which is the big national ceramic museum. And that is 2021. I know it seems a long time. It's like in March it opens. And it's together with Phoebe Cummins also. And a Danish ceramist called Marianne Nielsen. And we're going to work with the collection. They have a big collection of Royal Copenhagen and Bing and Grøndal ceramics. And we're going to work making work responding to the collection there. It's a collection of Art Nouveau ceramics by an artist called Effie Hegerman Lindenkrone. And she is my favorite artist that worked at. She's actually from Bing and Grøndal, which was later merged with the Royal Copenhagen. But it's very beautiful work, and I loved her work since I started actually on my BA course, where I saw her work at the Design Museum in Copenhagen. So I'm really looking forward to work with the collection.
So that's 2021 that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Well, we should look out for that. Malene Hartmann Rasmussen, thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome.
And to learn more about Malene Hartmann Rasmussen's work, go to malenehartmannrasmussen.com. There are images from the interviews, as well as little films and other things on my Instagram page, Grant on Design. If you've enjoyed listening and want to see this podcast flourish, then please rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this from. And go to my Patreon page and make a pledge. You can find that at patreon.com/material matters. You'll be helping to take the message of the importance of materials, skill, craft and design to a whole new audience. Thanks very much for listening.